metaverse, and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition. And this is Midday with Reverend Don. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you can type your questions or comments into whatever platform you happen to be watching on, and they will appear here in my chat room, and we can talk directly. And I love talking with all of you. I love to see you every day, and I hope that you enjoy the program. And this week, we are doing Defense Against the Dark Arts. Um, and yesterday, we were talking about personal shielding, the importance of keeping our energy clear and our energy defended and shielded against anything that might cause us problems. Hello to Janet in the chat room. It's good to see you, Janet. Today, we're going to be talking about spatial cleansing and shielding. That is to say, not just ourselves, but the things around us. And hello to Tom in the chat room. It's good to see you, Tom. So where do I begin with this subject? Well, let me start by saying that it's perfectly natural in life that every person and everything that has energy naturally gives off a certain amount of energy and naturally takes in a certain amount of energy, no matter what is going on. If you walk into a room, you're naturally going to feel and sense the energy of that room. Hello to Rajput in the chat room. And that's because you're absorbing a little bit of it. You're also going to be putting some of your own energy into that, unless you're extremely highly shielded. But generally, this is a thing that happens. And generally, there's nothing in the world wrong with that. That's part of how we get a sense of each other. It's part of how we know each other. It's the energetic equivalent of dogs sniffing each other's backsides. And I think that it's a very healthy thing for us to be sharing energy in that way. Now, when we have an energy imbalance, that's where we get things like psychic vampires, at least unintentional psychic vampires who take in a little bit more than they're putting out, sometimes a lot more, and they can become a problem that way. And hello to Asidionis in the chat room. It's good to see you, Asidionis. And of course, there are always the problem of people who are deliberately putting out negative vibrations or negative actions. Now, so far we're talking about how we naturally exchange energy as individuals. That's what we were dealing with yesterday. How do we shield our energy to keep out negative effects or to remove negative effects? How do we do that? We talked about that yesterday. Then, of course, we talk in greater detail in the many things I've written over the years about how to do this. And as I was saying yesterday, I'm not always blunt about all of the aspects of these things when they're first introduced. Sometimes you have to read a little farther to get some of it. And Rajput asks, does Romania really have real vampires? I doubt it, but I've not been there, so I can't be certain. But generally speaking, when we talk about vampires, we're usually talking about energetic vampires. And then there's a vampire movement of otherwise perfectly normal people who find it necessary to take in excess energy in this way. And they are divided between, pardon me for a moment, I beg your pardon. They're divided between people who are energetic vampires who take sustenance from other people's energy, and people who actually are sanguine vampires who actually do the blood thing. So there are people who do that, but they are people. And hello to Renee in the chat room, and hello to Jade in the chat room. It's good to see you both. And they're certainly not unique to Romania. You will find this all over the place. And I've known a number of them who are very nice. Generally speaking, at least in the vampires that I have known, it's a very consent-based situation. I'm sure there are those who don't fall under those rules, but There are always going to be people who insist on being less than appropriate, no matter what movement they're part of. Um, but as I was saying, there are always going to be people who are putting out negativity. If you've followed things that I've been doing for a number of years, you'll know about the peace campaign, which was created specifically to counter negative energy in the world. And that certainly was not done in the premise that there's no negative energy. And although negative energy seems to have spread, and I'm using the term negative energy rather broadly, but it seems to have spread around the world quite strongly at present. Without the peace campaign, it might have been worse. So I feel that it was a very important thing for us to do and continue doing um, through groups like the Peace Weavers. Not only on an individual level, however, but on a geographic level, there can be a negative energy charge that can obtain to a place, and also a positive energy charge. And when I say geographic, I'm talking about if you go to a particular building, you enter a particular room, you go to a particular area, um, sometimes even a particular part of a particular room, you can feel a change in the energy. Sometimes you will detect either a very positive charge or a very negative one. And sometimes that's been done intentionally. Sometimes it was not intentional. Sometimes it was created by something negative that happened there. The most famous example of this that I think people might recognize would be the Amityville Horror. Now, if we want to look at the Amityville Horror in realistic terms, it was highly exaggerated, and the original book is probably better thought of as a novel, which was composed over a great deal of wine, apparently. And the story of the Amityville Horror involves, I think, people like the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren, whose um, work basically existed just to scare people. And I take seriously virtually nothing that they did, nor do I recommend you take them seriously. But it is very good for illustrating the idea. The idea of the Amityville Horror, which is completely plausible, is that because certain negative things happened in the house, it left a negative charge. In this case, there had been a murder there. And people who came later claimed to feel an energetic effect from that. That can happen. Sometimes just an ordinary death, depending on the circumstances, can leave a negative charge. If it was an unhappy death. I remember Lady Crystal had lived in a house here in Danville at one time where a person had a long illness. And I don't remember now if they died in the house, but there was definitely an energetic charge that needed to be cleared. Um, and Rajput says, if we watch horror movies in which lights are flickering and twinkling, is this due to the negative charges of the soul? Well, it's definitely an energetic effect. I've seen it. I've seen people do it intentionally or unintentionally. And so, yeah, I guess we could put it that way. Yes, it usually, if it's unintentional, it's either due to a negative charge or simply uncontrolled energy. There are a few people who can do it intentionally, but usually that's not the case. We've talked in other programs, there are some people who can energetically interact with electronic equipment in a way that is unconscious and occasionally in a way that is conscious. But I have not met anyone who had truly perfected that art. I have seen people who can turn a television on and off without being anywhere near it, energetically speaking, or the same with lights, but seemingly only on the right occasion. Um, but yes, energy can it can interact with electronics um, because of people around or because of spirits. I think when it happens with spirits, it's more intentional on their part, and usually is an omen of something. When we look at something like a house with a negative charge, and hello to Joanne in the chat room, it's good to see you. And Joanne says, yes, clear negative energy, put it to rest, or as yesterday, shielding oneself. Exactly that, and that's where we're going. Um, when you're good with energy, you can usually deal with any of these subjects at an energetic level, because in the end, everything is energy. So let us say that you have moved into a house that has a negative charge. What do you do? Well, you clear the charge. How do you do that? You do it the same way we do um, before every ritual that we do. And Joanne asks for more on omens in the future. So we will talk about that more in the future. If you're familiar with Wiccan ritual, particularly our Corellian rituals, we tend to start by cleansing the magical space. And what are we cleansing it of? Negative energy. What do we mean by negative energy? Generally, we're just talking about static and unfocused energy. But if there is an intentionally negative charge, well, that's certainly part of it. In ritual, we tend to do this with a blessing of salt and water, together with um, energy, usually visualized as light. And then we follow it by raising the vibration of the space. Now, Krista, hello, Krista. It's good to see you. Krista says, cleanse energetically after you clean your house. I take salt baths to clear my energy from my massage clients. Deep cleansing when the peace in the house is disturbed. Absolutely. All of these different techniques of energy cleansing are exactly what you should do when you encounter negative energy. And but let us say that you have moved into a house or just come into a situation where you feel a negative charge. What do you do? And what you want to do is you want to cleanse that energy. I use visualization because I'm very big on visualization. There are other techniques. I've seen people who used an alcohol fire to burn off negativity. That certainly is one way of doing it. I use visualization, and I generally will flood the energy with light and force out the negativity and imagine it leaving, see it leaving, and then bind the area not to let it back in or any negativity back in. Shield it the way we talked about shielding yesterday for an individual. You want to shield this physical area in the same way. Um, and there are lots of other things you can do to make it more dramatic. You can use candles and incense and all that good stuff. And for some people, that will make it more effective. It all depends on where your individual talents lie, where your strength lies. But this is what you want to do. You want to cleanse that negative charge. Just as you would cleanse it from yourself, you cleanse it from the space. I usually will see negativity as little bits of debris, little bits of darkness exiting the area. Now, Krista says, I spread my arms and hands and coat the walls with silver energy, pushing the darkness out. Yes, that's perfectly good. Same basic thing I'm describing. I tend to use a yellow or a yellow-white light myself. But there are a number of ways to do it. But what you want to do is make sure that you are thorough and that you've excluded all the negative energy and that you have excluded it from all the places it might be. And you may wish to add an incantation or a prayer to affirm what you are doing, depending on how you feel about it, and also just how serious the negative charge is. When we do a house blessing, we go through every room and do this. Um, I often, if I feel it's necessary, I will use the yellow light to cleanse the area, and then I may fill it with silver or even golden stars to raise the vibration of that light to make it a stronger cleansing. Um, that's what I would do. Your mileage may differ, but this is basically the kind of action you will take. Now, when you've done that, you then want to fill the energy um, back with positive energy. You want to fill the space with positive energy. You want to raise its vibration. You want to fill it um, with with positive. Uh, Now, Tom says before some rituals, they will sweep the floor of negative energy. And that's a perfectly good way to do it as well. Um, a very traditional way of cleansing negative energy. And traditionally, a lot of people, when they were sweeping the floor, um, would also focus on getting rid of negative energy. And you can use a little visualization to do that. You can simply focus on it happening. Um, but yes, sweeping is another way. And for some people, the symbolism of using a broom is very important. Um, Incense is commonly used for this purpose. Um, there are many ways of doing it. Some people use sound. Some people might like to use bells or drumming or um, other kinds of sound to help with cleansing the negative charge, and then also with imparting the positive charge. But the thing that I want to emphasize is after you get rid of that negative charge, don't just leave it empty. Make sure that you fill it with positive energy. So, um, although there are many ways to do ritual, in most Corellian rituals you will see they will begin by cleansing the energetic charge of the space, and then by charging it, by raising its vibration. This is usually done with salt and water, and then with fire and incense. But it can be done in many other ways. The point is doing. As I say, I personally tend to use a lot of visualization. Not everyone is equally comfortable with that technique. Not everyone is equally good at it. There are many ways to do it. It does not have to be a house in which something terrible has happened, like someone being murdered in the bedroom. Um, it is good to do for any kind of negative charge. Maybe there was an argument. Maybe somebody's just sitting there, they're obsessing over negative things. Whatever it is, if there's a negative charge, cleanse it. And I don't see that as ever being a bad thing to do. Because all you're actually doing is restoring the energy to where it should be in the first place. Um, and if you find yourself going to work and always feeling bad, maybe you need to cleanse the energy of the space. One of the things I remember, and this is a useful story to tell. I remember when I was working at the Light of the Moon bookstore in Evanston, Illinois, years ago. Wonderful store. And one of the things that they would do, if they found things were starting to get a little static, that they weren't getting regular customers, that things were slowing down, they would go through and clean the store. They would move things around on the shelves. They would dust everything. And presently, the people would start coming. By changing the energetic patterns, they opened them back up. So we're not only talking, again, when we say negative, yeah, maybe someone's out there putting pins in a doll of you somewhere. Um, I I can certainly think of some places where people may be putting pins and dolls of me, um, but that isn't necessarily what we're talking about by negative energy. Um, just static energy, energy that has not been moving, energy that perhaps has gotten dirty through all kinds of different emotions, none of them inherently necessarily bad themselves. These also come under negative energy. Negative energy is any energy that is not properly cleansed. Um, so it's good to keep that energetic pattern um, open and vibrant. It's good to move things around from time to time. It's good to cleanse the energy and to charge the energy, even when there's nothing overtly negative going on. It just keeps the energy the way the energy should be. But when there is a strong negative charge, this is the first and most obvious thing that you do to deal with it. And now we mentioned using incense earlier. Some people love to use incense for cleansing. And Tom remarks on liking sage for this purpose. Sage is very popular for cleansing uh, in the last 30 years or so. But it's certainly not the only thing that can be used for that. Lavender can be very good for that. There are lots of things that are good for it. Um, and in fact, I would think you could use almost anything if it's what you had. But that's another thing that you can do. If you're focusing on breaking up that negative energy, sending it out and replacing it with positive energy, incense can be helpful for that because, the smoke goes in all the little corners in theory. Um, so these are some of the things that you might consider doing to break up negative energy in a place. Now, what if you're dealing with a much stronger negative charge than that? Then you want, I would say, to turn to shadow work and some of the same techniques we use in shadow work for ourselves. I always recommend soul retrieval as being one of the stronger ones that I have used, and that can also be done for a place as well as for an individual. Can even be used for a time under the right circumstances. But you would um, want to do the soul retrieval for the space that you need to cleanse in order to heal the energies that are causing the negative charge in the same way you do it for yourself. And it can be very effective. So, these are some of the things I would recommend. If you feel, not to be oogie boogie about it, but if you feel someone is deliberately sending or creating a negative charge in a place, what do? You want to shield it. And you can shield it just the way we were talking about by creating a barrier around it, just as we were talking about yesterday. You can also physically enact this by processing around the required area, that the part that you're trying to shield, um, perhaps with incense, perhaps just with visualization, perhaps with candles, with whatever you want to use. But the point is that you physically go around the perimeter you're trying to protect. That's something that can be very helpful. You can also, through sympathetic magic, create a miniature map of the area to work with in a magical way and draw out the energetic barriers that you're trying to create or otherwise represent them. Um, let's say it's your house. You can make a little picture of a house, surround it perhaps with red yarn, any number of other things that you might do for a protective spell to shield that property. it doesn't necessarily require physically circling the property, physically even being on it. One of the nice things about magic is that it can be done remotely. So these are some of the things I would recommend to you if you feel you're dealing with a space that has a negative charge. Now, tomorrow we're going to continue talking about defense against the dark arts, and we're going to get a little more specific tomorrow. We have a number of things that we are likely to be looking at. At some point, we're going to talk about amulets and talismans. At some point, we're going to talk about the famous freezer spell and what to do if you feel that perhaps you are affected by one. We may talk a little bit about energetic resources such as the crystal web. We'll see how the conversation goes as we work our way through the week, but these are some of the things we're going to be dealing with. So I hope that you're enjoying this subject, and again, we will be continuing it. Now, we're nearly at the end of our half hour. I want to take a moment to recommend you to our Pagan World TV auction that's going on this week. And we have a number of things, a number of physical items available. We also have readings available. And I want to encourage you to check that out. And places that you can find that include at Pagan World / pagan-world-auction at paganworld. Let me just make sure I got that correct. Yeah, at the Pagan World site. You can also find us at eBay under Pagan World TV. And this helps to support the things we're doing here at Pagan World. So hopefully you will have a look at that. And hello to George in the chat room. It's good to see you, George. And George says, dang, I missed you. I'll have to watch replay. Well, you know, that's the nice thing about this format, because it will be here in replay. So thank you, everyone, for joining me. I love spending this time with you. I love talking with you. I hope that you're enjoying this subject and finding it of help in your life, because, you know, we all, from time to time, do have to deal with negative charges we may encounter, just as a normal part of living, and occasionally because of the animus of others. So let us close with our prayer, as we always do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all that you do for us in our lives, and we ask you to be with us and to help us to keep ourselves safe in a world that is not always safe. Help us to protect our boundaries, both energetically and personally, and to make our lives as peaceful and joyful as we can. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love and with respect, knowing you are always with us, but from respect, we thank you for your presence. May you be blessed now and always. And I thank you for your presence. May you be blessed now and always. And I will see you tomorrow when we will continue our